All right, let's kick it off. All right, thanks everyone for joining us. We really appreciate it. Happy beginning of the November election cycle, and I guess for some, this might be the start to the November election or to the primary election cycle as well. My name is Guillermo Velasco. I'm the elections director for the Idaho Secretary of State's office. With me, I've got Peggy Caraway. She is the campaign finance specialist in our group. And then Becca Kozlowski, she is the election specialist in our group. So first off, this will be very, very basic overview of just running for office and campaign finance. So we'll go ahead and get started. For those who are joining late or who have folks in your organization that couldn't make it, we will record this and we will send the link out to folks. And we'll send out a mass email to everyone once we get this uploaded to YouTube and all that fun stuff. Along the way, if you guys have any questions, I'll be monitoring the chat, so we can stop along the way. So shoot over your questions, and looking forward to hearing from all of you. All right, Peggy.
I just want to make a quick comment that we will also, in addition to the chat, have a question and answer session at the end, especially reserved for that, or you can ask questions at any time. And this training, when we originally sent out the message, we asked about what you wanted to hear about. This is kind of a simplified version of the full training. We're really gearing this toward candidates more than PACs and committees. However, the transactions are often similar, so PACs and committees are welcome. And we will be holding more sessions in the future for those of you that want to take a deeper dive. So this is going to be a pretty high-level session. So before I jump in, Guillermo, if you could talk just briefly about candidate filing, and then we'll jump right into campaign finance.
Sure. Let's see. Okay, so running for office. So you've decided to run for office. What's next? So first off, you've got to make sure you meet the qualifications of the office you're seeking. Of course, have to file with the appropriate taxing districts, the appropriate county, and the appropriate states. And then after that, you've got to appoint a treasurer and create a campaign finance account. So this last legislative session, House Bill 278 changed a variety of things. So the filing period for this upcoming November election was pushed back, and the last day for candidate filing is this Friday at 5 o'clock local time. So keep that in mind if you are looking to run for office for this upcoming November election. And then for those folks who are interested in running for a statewide office next year, House Bill 278 also really changed how candidate filing will work next year. So the filing period for the upcoming 2026 election cycle for statewide offices starts February 23rd and goes through February 27th. It used to be 2 weeks, now it's only 1 week. The part that gets tricky here or will be confusing to some is once the state wraps up their candidate filing, then it will be the county's turn. So the counties have 2 weeks after us for candidate filing. So essentially now it's a 3-week candidate filing period, but they're separated. So candidate filing for county starts March 2nd and goes through March 13th.
So basically at this point, I'm going to jump into some basic campaign finance reporting issues. And the most important thing to remember is this is about sunshine. All money raised or spent in your campaign or your committee must be accounted for and tracked. This includes your personal money. So we will talk a little bit about some of those transactions where you can move money into your account, but everything must be tracked and reported. All of you have an account already established. So the only thing I really want to point out here is that for local candidates, you may have created an account, but you will not see any reports yet on your dashboard. We're going to talk about the dashboard in just a bit. That's because Sunshine doesn't require you to report until you've met a threshold of $500 in contributions or expenditures. So continue to input your transactions, and the system will notify you when you've reached that amount and are required to file a report. For those of you who are looking at a statewide office or a legislative office next year, you will be filing annually this year, but also continue to input your contributions and expenditures. The system will track that, and you'll be doing an annual report for next year. One thing I do want to quickly point out here is that all of you on this call do have a treasurer. So because you have established an account, the treasurer can be yourself. You can also modify your treasurer when you're in your account. You've already created your campaign name. I'm going to just have a brief discussion about that in just a minute. And you've registered your campaign finance account. For those of you who have not created a bank account, I'm going to show you where in your Sunshine Campaign Finance account you find the form that you will need to bring to your bank to do that. But in terms of the details about some of the things Guillermo just talked about and the whole running for office effort, that if you look on voteidaho.gov, which is our website, go to the pull-down menu on the top, running for office, and how to run for office, those details will be there. So again, I'm going to cover things at a really high level right now. There will be more details later, and I'm going to say at the end, I'm going to present myself and Becca and our office's number at any time. We would love to have your questions. If you have questions on anything about what I'm going to be going over or anything in more detail about Sunshine or the campaign finance system, please call our office at any time. We're happy to talk to you about it. In terms of reporting, for those of you running this year, this is your election year, you're on monthly reporting schedule. We're at the end of August. Your August report will be due September 10th. So it's on the 10th of the following month. Those of you on annual reporting, it's not your election year. Your report will be due on January 10th of 2026. We send out reminders on the 9th. For all of you that have a report due, you'll get a text and you'll get an email message. We'll send you another courtesy reminder on the 11th that you're a day late for filing if you have a report due on the 10th of the month. There is a 2-day grace period. So even that message you're getting on the 11th, you are not receiving fines from the Sunshine Campaign Finance System. You have 2-day grace period after that filing, and that's when we are on the phone, emailing you, calling you, doing whatever we can to reach you to remind you to file that report. I mentioned just a brief thing about your campaign name.
Okay, sorry, really quick, we've got a question.
Sure.
Archie? I think you're muted, Archie.
We can't.
For candidates who've continued right on since the last election, do they need to file again? Their campaign is still open.
If you're continuing from the last election, for all of the legislative candidates, we've worked with a functionality called Add New Campaign. So you still have access to the old 2024 and the 2026. But for those of you who were candidates and are continuing on, and you have not changed your election year, the system will not generate the correct reports for you. So you can change your election year within your account or call our office, and we will do that for you. Because as I mentioned, the system's not going to know that you are running again unless you do that, and it knows to create monthly reports or annual if it's not an election year. So reach out to our office. Or you can go in and you can choose, if you're familiar with the system, you can choose amend registration, change your year, your election year, and that will prompt the system to create the correct reports for you.
Well, I've been entering all our transactions as treasurer for Trish, so I think we're in good standing there. It's taking them all, I'll file them in January.
Yeah, she will be annual this year. Yep. But if it doesn't look correct, reach out to me and I'll just make sure that you've got the right reports generated for you.
Let's see, we got one more question. Pete?
Hey, we go back to the form that you're supposed to take in. Does that mean that these bank accounts need to be like specific campaign finance bank accounts? Is there something that the bank needs to know? Like we just started just a new bank account with the EIN for the campaign.
No, we don't actually have visibility into your banking, and Sunshine doesn't require a specific way to have that set up. That when some of the candidates and committees have gone to the bank has required that they present not only their name, but the name of their campaign and this form. If your bank didn't require it, but you still have an account, you should be fine.
Perfect, thank you.
Mhm. So just quickly, a complaint that comes in regarding campaign finance quite a bit is the disclosures on your communications. All signs, Facebook, mailers, broadcast, however you're communicating information about your campaign, you have to indicate on the communication who paid for it. You don't have to use the words paid for by, but that is definitely what we would recommend for clarity. So please note that. You don't have to have that on your business cards and that kind of thing, but any communications that you send out or broadcast or your signs, please have a statement indicating who paid for that communication. This example has the treasurer listed. The treasurer is not required to be on that per Sunshine Law, but again, that just adds some additional clarity if you do put that on there. Just briefly, all of the local candidates, you are within the jurisdiction of the county or the taxing district or the city. You can reach out to them with any questions. However, our office, we did implement the Sunshine Campaign Finance System. We do all the approvals for your accounts. We work with the software vendor on any issues that you encounter. So even though you may be in local jurisdiction, you can feel free at any time to contact our office and we can help you with all things campaign finance related.
One more question, Peggy, sorry. Janet, go ahead.
I think you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, just a quick question about, let's say like social media, Facebook. Do we have to have the paid for on the Facebook page, or is that strictly for ads?
It should also be indicated if your own Facebook page, it's clear that you're doing the communication, but I would still indicate it somewhere on there. And again, the wording paid for by isn't necessarily required, but maybe right under your candidate or a committee name, you could say, you know, sponsored by and your campaign name. That Sunshine Law was written went into effect in 1974, so much has changed about the way we communicate and advertise and run campaigns, that the law is vague. We definitely recommend clarity whenever possible, because you want to prevent any complaints that you get against your campaign, if at all possible.
Thank you.
In just a minute, I'm going to actually jump into the system, and I'm going to be showing you some basics about transactions and dashboards and where some documents are. But before I do that, I'll just kind of briefly talk to you about what you're going to be seeing. When you go in and you go into your transactions tab, you have the ability to enter 6 types of transactions. Contributions, of course, anything coming into your campaign from people who support and want to donate to your campaign. And expenditures, any costs that you have associated with running your campaign. We'll talk briefly about those 2 kinds of transactions. In kind is it's the one we get the most questions on. Any kind of contribution, even if it is not monetary, that's not cash that you're receiving, you still need to report that as a contribution. And an example would be if somebody gives you a computer to use for your campaign, that's a contribution that you need to record at the fair market value. If somebody gives you space to use for your campaign, if somebody gives an item to you to auction off at an event, that's a contribution. And those in-kinds have to be reported, and I can't think of the word, but your limits are impacted by that. So if somebody gives you $1,000 computer, you have met that limit, that contribution limit for that contributor. So the in-kinds don't impact your cash, but they definitely do have to be recorded, and I'll show you one of those transactions. Because this is really geared more toward candidates and those of you running in the November 25th election, you will not likely be making independent expenditure or electioneering communication expenses within your account. But, so I won't be talking about those, but you can ask questions about those later, because you may have those made for your candidacy or against your candidacy. Those are expenditures that are made without your coordination. Committees and PACs often make independent expenditures and electioneering communications. Those, again, are communications that they're putting out there that are not made with the coordination of the candidate. And then finally, loans. You are unlimited in the amount of money you can give to your own campaign. So when we talk about campaign limits, you can receive up to $1,000 per contributor per election for your campaigns. You can give yourself unlimited amounts. And when I said the 1,000, I'm talking about legislative candidates and local candidates. Statewide candidates have a $5,000 limit per contributor per election. And when I say per election, really what that means is primary is one election, general is another. So it's per election, $1,000 per contributor. And I will talk a little bit about loans. So I'm going to jump into the system and show you a little bit about the transactions.
Maybe before you jump on there, we've got a question in the chat. So good question from Kristen. Can two people from a household contribute $1,000 each?
Yes. Spouses are individuals, and there can be $1,000 per spouse. We would recommend that they would note that on the check, that it was, if it was a joint account, that $1,000 was from each spouse. But yes, individuals, it's per individual is the $1,000 limit. Any other questions? I have just put this slide up for just a second, and I will come back to this slide. I'm going to jump into the system, but it's going to be at a very high level. So again, reach out to our office, myself, Becca, or just call into our general number, and we will get back to you if you have any specific questions about campaign finance. So at this point, I'm going to jump in and just show you a little bit about the system itself. Can all of you see the screen that I'm on? Okay, so here you are looking at the public portal. Can you scroll down? I don't know if I can. Can I scroll down? Yes. So I just want to show you quickly. Right down here, it's an area that a lot of people don't look at, but if you scroll down on the right, you'll see resources. This is on sunshine.voteidaho.gov. It's the same place that you land. So look at this list on resources. What you're going to see here is you have a copy of the Sunshine Law. You want to open that up and read it. And there's 2024 Campaign Finance Disclosure Manual. Our office is currently updating that. We hope to have it on this website within a week or two. And there's a lot of frequently asked questions in there that I think will be really helpful to you about more specific things that you're going to encounter when you're in the system. So I just wanted to point out that page, and now I'm going to jump in to what you see when you log in. When you log in as a filer, you land on your dashboard. These tabs right under the words in the upper left, Idaho Sunshine, you have your dashboard, your account overview, which will allow you to make changes. You can go here and amend your registration. You can change your treasurer. You can change some things about your campaign. Some things are not changeable fields. And in that case, call us and we can do many of those changes for you. But I mentioned that there's a treasurer appointment form at the very bottom. So on the bottom of your account overview page, You can download this form and take it to your bank. It will have your name and your campaign name on it, and that will, in most cases, that's all that a bank requires for you to set up your individual account. We'll talk a little bit about transactions, but you also have a tab that shows your reports and the public view. If you want to click on that, you can see what the public sees on our public portal, sunshine.voteidaho.gov, if they search for your candidacy. This particular candidate hasn't filed any reports yet, so that's why you don't see anything here, but you will see this populated as you file reports. But let's go back to your dashboard. This is where you land when you log in. The important thing to note on your dashboard is this reminders column in the far left. Any reports that you have due to file will be listed here along with the dates that those are due. This is a local candidate, Jane Doe for mayor. So she has a first 500 report that can be previewed and is ready for filing. So that dashboard page is where you're going to land again when you log in and where you're going to see all the reports that you need to file. The system will tell you when you have a report due. And that's an amended report, a 48-hour report, a monthly report. They'll all be listed in this reminder section. But I'm going to hop now over to transactions, the third tab over. Whenever you want to input your contributions and expenditures, this is where you're going to do it. It's also going to be where you're going to make all of your changes. So you'll see a chart. We've put some transactions in for this candidate, but I want to spend a little bit of extra time doing a contribution transaction because there are some idiosyncrasies in the system that I want to point out. So you're going to go and you're going to add transaction, and you'll see those that I talked about before, contributions, expenditures, in kind, and so on. You'll select the kind of transaction that you want to input, and it's going to basically prompt you for that information. I'm going to talk briefly about contribution type. And as I do that, please note over here on the right, any helpful tips or extra information that will help you as you migrate through these pages are in this section here on the right. So there are 4 kinds of contributions. Interest earned, if you have any interest income from your bank, you enter it as a contribution under interest earned. It doesn't appear as a contribution like most of them in your report. It just captures it here because it will impact your cash balance. Here's an interesting one, anonymous contribution. There are absolutely no anonymous contributions allowed. Every contribution, no matter how small, has to have a name and an address associated with it. They won't all present on your report, and I'll explain that in a minute, but you still have to have that name and address. If you receive a contribution and you can't return it to the contributor and you don't know who sent it, then what you'll need to do, and again, it's over here on the far right column, you need to send that to our office with a check made out to the state controller for deposit in the public school fund. Reframe, this system, Sunshine Campaign Finance System, aggregates your contributions. So if you receive a contribution of $10, that won't be presented on your report if you record it as unitemized. There will be no name and address associated with it. But if the following month, that contributor sends you another check for $50, you have gone over the amount that a contribution has to be reported with a name and address on your report. The number is $50, and that's over here in the column. Anybody who contributes more than $50, there will be a requirement that their name and address is presented on your report. The system will catch that for you. So I'm going to go ahead and enter this contribution as a mistake, and you'll see that will prompt you to make a correction and put it in as itemized. So itemized will present the name and address on your public report when you file it. Unitemized will not. $50 is that threshold. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in an unitemized contribution of $51. That's a mistake, and we'll get back to that back to that later, and I'll show you how the system's gonna prompt you. Contributor type. This is probably the most common question we get in our office. If you enter candidate, political committee, or central committee, the system will populate the name and address automatically for you, but only if they are filers in the system. Let's say I choose political committee, and I start typing, and I'm gonna have my choice of all the filers that have that name. You can select that, and their name and address will be there. However, if you type political committee, and you jump over to the box, and you don't see a filer, let's say you receive a check from Boeing, and nothing populates. That means that that group or company or person is not a filer in the system, and you have to choose either person or company. Those are the only two selections that are gonna allow you to enter the information. What I mean by that is you hop over to the contributor box, and you'll get a tab that you can enter a new contributor. I'm just gonna go ahead and input one very quickly. And then you'll enter their address information. And you will, once you do this once, it will be in your system for all time. You have a pull down here that you can select your states. Keep forgetting the mouse. Sorry about that. You all know Seattle's not in Vermont. And then you enter the information, and it is saved for you. Once you do that once, the next time you receive a confirmation, contribution from this person, you can just start. Okay, so you can go ahead and select your date. The date is the date you received the contribution. And then candidates must designate their contributions. And that's again because of that limit, $1,000 per contributor for election. You have to, even for expenditures, you have to have an election type, an election year. I said that I had input this incorrectly. I was required to call this itemized, but I didn't by mistake. Here's a red flag indicating that I have a problem, but also when I save that contribution, gives me the option to make that itemized. It also tells me I've hit the $1,000 threshold and I need to file a $500 report. So I can go back over to my dashboard and I can file that first 500 report, which is what you local candidates will have. I'm not going to spend as much time on the other kinds of transactions. I'm just going to point out a couple things. Expenditures has the same issue, itemized for $25, unitemized for below that. Purpose codes. You have to have a purpose code for an expenditure. The pull-down menu is not exhaustive, so unfortunately some things won't exactly match. Choose the purpose code that most closely matches that transaction. And even expenditures have to be designated for an election. So for those of you in 2024, primary, 2026. For those of you running this year, general, 2025. I'll just briefly also show you a little bit about.
We've got a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Archie, go ahead.
So to what extent, if one candidate or organization enters a new person or a company, will that show up when you start typing the same business or individual in for another candidate? So there are a bunch of things that show up that I never entered, but someone else did already, or it's pre-populated. And that to me is just a general question.
Yes, if they are a filer, it's accessible by everybody. If you enter a new person or company, it is not visible to other filers. But if you are in your transactions tab and you see contributor, payee, loan source, they are in there within your account. So the next time that you enter that name and number, it will automatically populate. But somebody who did not enter that in their account will not see it. So unfortunately, it's only the filers that show up as candidates or committees. Did that make sense?
Yep,
Did that answer your
thank you.
question? Mm-hmm.
All right, Matthew, go ahead.
Is he typing something or is he mute?
Oh, he might be muted, he's got his hand up. Yeah, and there's two more, could be muted, okay, he's gonna type it up, but we've got two other questions. From Wendy Gabriel, is there a maximum cash contribution amount for companies for local elections?
It's 1,000 per contributor per election for everybody, local and legislative, unless you're a statewide candidate. Secretary of State, governor, lieutenant governor, their limit is 5,000 per election.
And then Wendy Rhodes, there's a great question. If a married couple has a couple LLCs, are they able to donate from each LLC and individual?
So that is, and it's defined in Sunshine, I can tell you the section for sure, but you can contribute as an individual and as one company. If you have another company that has the same owners, then that would be a double contribution. But you can contribute as an individual and one of the companies. You can also contribute from a second company if you're not primary owners, but I don't think that's necessarily your question. And I'm just going to quickly give you the reference in case you want to look at that for yourself. Let me just quickly grab this. I'm just paging through really quickly. Go to, it's under limits of contributions, and it is under 676610A, section 5. And it's actually 5, section C, but it defines how separate those companies have to be in order for you to count that as a separate contribution. Did that answer your question? Hopefully, yes.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just,
Let's see, sorry.
uh-huh.
We're getting questions. From Molly, candidate is the sole owner of a company. Can the company give unlimited funds or just 1,000?
You can give 1,000 from yourself, but if you're going to record that contribution as from the company, then no, that would just be 1,000. Any others?
Oh, and then Matthew, we'll wait for your question, but we'll go ahead and keep this rolling.
Okay, so I'm just going to briefly show a little bit about in-kind and loans, and then we'll just open it up for general questions. In-kind contributions do not impact your cash. The only differences between this is you're receiving something that's not monetary. So you still have a contributor type, same constraint. Person and company allows you to input a new one. You also have self. And if you choose self, it automatically populates with your own name and address. If you want to loan your campaign a computer, if you want to give something from your personal household to your campaign, you can choose self. Again, if you choose person or company, you have the ability to hop into the contributor box and add a new contributor. In these, they also, because they are contributions, they also have to be designated for an election type and year. And when I say this, I should make it clear. I know that there are those of you out there for the training that are PACs and committees. You do not have to designate for election type or year because that's not how that type of account works. You also have unlimited contributions. So PACs and committees can take in unlimited contributions, and they do not have to designate that for an election type or year. And in-kind is the only contribution type where you have, or expenditure type, where you have to fill in the description field. The others, the description field is optional. Here it is not, and the way you know that is you have a red asterisk here. So putting the description of the in-kind item and what it was. And again, I mentioned that because it zeroes out your cash, it doesn't impact your cash. It has an expenditure component. So just like an expenditure, you have a code, a computer, maybe that's a general operating expense. Maybe somebody donated food to your event. That would be food and refreshments. Maybe somebody gave you an item to auction off. That is still recorded as a contribution at fair market value, but so you have a code for the expense side of that. And you can, this is an optional field, but you can put in the source of that. Often, the source is the person who gave you the contribution, but it could be, like in the case of office supplies, if somebody bought office supplies for you and gave it to you for your campaign, you could enter Office Max or wherever those office supplies came from. So I'm going to jump back to the Transactions tab and just quickly note, once you input these transactions, you're going to see these in your chart, and you'll note that in-kinds have both a contribution and an expenditure for that same transaction. So that's something to note, that you will see a contribution and an expenditure. That is so that it won't have any impact on the cash that you have in your campaign.
Again, I've got a question from James, and Matthew, we'll get to yours here shortly, but, James' question is, what about donating time? And James, I'm assuming you're talking about like donating time as an individual, like if your buddy's an attorney or a CPA or whatever.
Yeah, so in the case of like a volunteer for your campaign, or somebody going to hang signs for you, you do not need to record that as an in-kind. But if you're getting a service from like an accounting organization or an attorney, yes. Legal fees, and that has been a question that's come up before. Those are things that do need to be recorded as in-kind contributions. Again, somebody just running out and hanging signs for you or running an errand for you, that does not need to be. But somebody who does give you like a service, accounting or legal, that should be reported as an in-kind contribution.
And then, let's see, Wendy Gabriel, does in-kind have to be an item? What about a person donating time to help build a website? So,
Yeah, website as well. Yeah, that would be another example where you would record that as an in-kind contribution at the market value that person's time would be charged if they were just charging you that as a straight expense.
And then Lynn Crosby, would donation of billboard be listed under broadcast?
Yeah, the codes are tough. Those are not, like I said, not all exhaustive. So possibly broadcast or literature. And in that case, I would really suggest, if it doesn't seem to quite align, I would put a description in that description field, even though it's not required per the system. I would still put a description in there just to make it clear what it is. Clear is always better than unclear.
Justin, can I use my own computer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then let me go back to Matthew really quick. I think this is an easy one. So he has a website, overall cost for 1 year for hosting and 3 years for domain. If he paid all the money up front, is that all reported on the date of payments? Additionally, if it's billed monthly, do I need to post every month?
Most of the candidates do post them monthly. Sunshine wants expenditures to be as close as possible to the accurate date when you incurred the expenditure or made the agreement to pay. But there are a lot of smaller expenditures, especially those that are unitemized, that you could group and report. And I know a lot of people do group like processing fees for receiving contributions. They might group that per the month. Candidates do it different ways. Sunshine doesn't define exactly how to do those, but it does say as close as possible to when you incurred the expenditure. I'll just leave it at that, make a general statement. Any others?
Questions for now?
So before I open it up for general questions, I just want to point something out. I get a question a lot about how do I amend a report? When you file a report back on your dashboard page, of course, you can preview them and go to filing screen. You are putting, it's a PDF, it's a picture of the report that Sunshine Campaign Finance System created for you. You can't go back and modify a past report or amend it. You amend everything and make all of your changes within your transaction tab. So the actions column on the far, and I will probably need help schooling on this, I don't know how to get it there. There we go. This column on the far right, actions, every transaction has 3 dots. You can select those and you can view or edit or delete a transaction. Making the change there, if that transaction appeared on a report that you've already filed, you'll get a pop-up that says, this change requires you to make an amended report. You'll change it here, and then you'll go to your dashboard, and it will be on your dashboard for you to file that amended report. And you'll see the changes made on that amended report. So if you've already filed a report for an existing transaction, you will need to go and file that amended report. You can't go onto a report you already filed and make the change there. Change everything here in the Actions tab of your transactions. One other thing I'd like to briefly mention is if you give yourself a loan, then one of the options is you can pay it back to yourself, which will take the cash out of your campaign, or you can choose to forgive it if you've spent a lot of your campaign cash. So putting a loan in as self gives you some good opportunities there. In addition, contributions and expenditures have a selection of return. If you make an expenditure and you get a refund from, let's say you may have some signs made and you get a refund back from the printer, you can do that within the original transaction. You select return, and it's going to prompt you for how much came back to you and what the date was. That's where you file it, in the original transaction. The same is true of a contribution. Contributions have the opportunity to select return, and in that case, what you're saying is, I am giving this contribution back to the original contributor. So that is where you do that. So make all of the changes to your transactions within the original line and the 3 action dots on the right. And if you have not filed a report where you input a transaction, you can delete the transaction and just correct it. If you have filed it, it's going to force an amended report to be filed. So at this point, I think I would like to open it up just for some general questions and answers that people may have.
You want to put
I got a
your
question.
info? Yep, go ahead.
So,
I have a question. Susan Weathers.
All right, go ahead, Susan.
On the campaign disclosure reports, my candidate's running for a county office. If I file with the state, do I also have to physically file with the county?
Sorry, I had a tough time hearing that one. Can you repeat that one more time?
I have a candidate that's running for a county office. On the Sunshine reports, do I file with the state and the county, or do I file just with the state?
That's a good question. So the entire system lives with the state, but the county will oversee the campaign finance account, if that makes sense. So you would file it on the Vote Idaho website, on the Sunshine, but then the county would be the one that would see it.
Question, I'm sorry, I was jumping
I've got
around.
I've got a question, Justin Buckholz.
Go ahead.
So what actually counts as an expenditure? So if I buy a shirt for the campaign trail, does that count as an expenditure, or is that allowed? What is not allowed as an expenditure?
If you buy yourself a t-shirt and it doesn't have an advertisement on it, you really shouldn't record that at all, because there's a section in Sunshine that talks about things that you can and can't use your campaign for, and one of those is purchasing personal clothing items.
Right. So, but if I have something on there that says vote Justin for mayor, then that I should report that.
Yeah, that, in that case, yeah. I think that would be,
Perfect,
that
thank
would be
you.
the best, yeah.
All right, Archie, go ahead,
Thank you.
and then I'll get to the questions in the chat.
So this may not be within your scope of comment, but if the campaign makes a payment to somebody for time they spent putting up or taking down or otherwise working for the campaign, door knocking, do we need to send them a 1099 NEC at the end of the year for tax reporting purposes? That would
What's
be a
the
federal-
600?
That would be a federal tax filing. I've been under the impression that if we comply with all the state rules, we don't have to do any federal reporting. But this is a question that I would have. You know, is you know, somebody's friend or relative wanted to be reimbursed for the time they spent working on the campaign, door knocking or so forth. Do they need to be signed on as an employee, or can you send them a 1099, or must you send them a 1099 at the end of the year?
Yeah, that's a good question, Archie. We'll look into it and we'll get back to you. I've seen campaigns do a variety of different things. There's some campaigns that do 1099s, there's some that, and honestly, we just sometimes don't even know what they're doing. But when it comes to the IRS, that's someone you don't want to mess with, right? So we'll get back to you on that one.
And we do get a lot of questions about tax and sales tax. You have to, charge sales tax, and, the best place to go for that is the tax commission. And I actually do have a contact there. If I can give you his email address, somebody.
Chat.
Okay, so Philip, oh, go ahead. Gabriel's gonna put that in the chat because some of the specific tax questions we hate to answer yay or nay and guide you incorrectly for something that important. So, I'll have you reach out to our contact there, Philip Johnson at the Tax Commission, and ask any of those specific questions.
All right, the questions in.
Where's the chat? How do I look at that?
There should be a button on your screen that says chat. If not, Archie, we can send it directly to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you got it. All right, so Matthew, so an itemized, is that at my discretion to use? Meaning even if equal or less than $50, can I still use itemized?
You can. If you choose itemized and it's less than $50, it will present the name and address of the payee or the contributor on your report. So you can do it, you can choose it that way. If you do decide to do something, record something as unitemized that should be itemized, you'll get that red flag. And we do see those from our office. So yeah, you can err on the, you know, over reporting, that's totally fine. It's the under reporting that will be an issue.
And then from Molly, does the candidate need an EIN for the campaign?
That question has come up before. A lot of banks don't require that when you set up your account, and we don't have visibility into your banking or require or not require an EIN. So that is something I would leave up to you. Most candidates do get them. Our recommendation would be to get them, but it's not something we require.
And from Chris Perry, hey Chris, good to hear from you. His question is, can you speak broadly to the regulations against coordination between PACs and candidates, particularly if there have been any meaningful changes in recent legislation?
There haven't been any meaningful changes in recent legislation. We have had a number of campaign finance complaints. And so we have made, opinions on that. In those kinds of cases, we tend to reach out to the Attorney General. And I don't want to go into the specific details of some of those that have I don't feel comfortable sharing that kind of details, public information, but, you know, if you put in a public records request, we can share that, but committees and PACs can coordinate with candidates and they can make expenditures on behalf of candidates. If it's in coordination, it's an expenditure. If it's not in coordination, it's an independent expenditure or electioneering. And so I'm not really sure, specifically how to answer that unless you're asking about the specific issues we've had that we've received formal complaints about. That probably did not even come near answering your question.
Yeah, I think there's, long story short, there haven't been any meaningful changes in recent legislation. I mean, I think a lot of folks saw last session, we tried to do a whole rewrite of the campaign finance manual, since, as Peggy said, this thing was written in 1970, in the 1970s, and it was a citizen-led initiative. And, you know, 1970s was a long time ago. So, yeah, we'll see what comes up in the 2026 legislative session.
Better than mine, for sure.
For Len, so candidates' personal loans to their campaign, is that limited to $1,000? Also, if the candidate forgives that loan, how do you record that?
So loans are unlimited if it's your money to your campaign. There is no limit. You can give as much money to your campaign as you would like. If you go into the transactions and you can pay it, as I mentioned, you can pay it, which will deduct from your cash, or you can forgive it. That shows up in Schedule D on your report. So when you file a report, it will be publicly presented whether you paid or forgave that loan. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So, and then, thank you, Heidi. So will you repeat the numbers for itemized versus unitemized?
Okay, so, and I apologize for this because the line is slightly odd. For contributions, the amount is $50, and the actual wording in the law is anything over $50 is itemized, meaning $50.01. $50 and below is unitemized. In expenditures, it's $25, and that flips. $25 or above is itemized, and below $25 is unitemized. And I apologize for that flip right at the number. So was that clear what I just said? Again, the system will alert you. But for contributions, the 50 is included in unitemized. For expenditures, the 25 is included in itemized. Sorry about that. Yeah, Citizens Initiative. Any other questions?
All right, we'll hang out here for a little bit. Questions, if you guys have questions, keep on, send them our way. Multiple people donate in a donation jar, how do you record it? That's a great question.
Okay, so, like I said, there's no anonymous contributions allowed. If you're gonna have a donation jar, you still have to record every penny per person that everybody puts in that jar, so no pass the hat. You can record that on a spreadsheet, and Sunshine does have the ability to import spreadsheets. So at least it makes it easier from the end of putting it into your report, but you still cannot accept any anonymous donations. Everything must be recorded. So keep a spreadsheet there when people are putting money into the jar and have somebody track that as it goes in. I know that's cumbersome, but that is Sunshine law. Okay, so I'm going to go back and share. I will show you where it exists. And let me just, Becca, you're going to have to help me with this. I want to jump back into, and I haven't exited. Well, I'm just going to quickly verbally answer this because I don't know that we're logged back in. If you can log into UAC. If you are in your transactions tab, which is that middle tab in the light blue bar on the upper left under Idaho Sunshine, where we were selecting plus add transaction, Becca's trying to get you back there, but right to the right of that plus add transaction tab, there was an import tab. That's import spreadsheets. And if you select that tab, it pops you into a screen that does a number of things. There's a place there to download the user guide.